Please be seated. In his book, Shop Class as Soulcraft, author Matthew Crawford discusses motorcycle repair. Now, the bikes he really likes to repair are not the new shiny ones with layers and layers of electronics piled on top of that machine. He likes the old ones, especially the ones that are really, really broken. He loves spending days bewildered, following threads of thought, tirelessly trying to figure out what's wrong with this machine and how it can be repaired. In fact, I think Crawford almost seems to enjoy being bewildered. He says that when faced with the hard discipline of reality, he must submit to things that have their own intractable ways, like the rules of a motorcycle that doesn't work. He finds joy in working through a problem that he cannot escape, through a reality he cannot control. And through this type of focused and surrendered work, he says something in himself is repaired as well. Because I think we all may know this, going through bewilderment, coming out on the other side, well, it does something to us. The reality of life, this reality to which we are all tied, well, it can often be bewildering, but whatever it is that's puzzling us today, whatever broken motorcycle is in our lives, we're not alone. Today, we get to walk with Joseph through his troubles. And Joseph's Annunciation story shows us the entire scope of bewilderment and one possible way through it that leads to the repair of the soul. So let's look deeply at that story. In it, we hear that Joseph has just found out his fiancée is pregnant and the baby is not his. That is a hard reality with its own intractable ways. And he goes to bed, he feels pinned down by this reality that he cannot escape. At least he can't escape it unscathed. And he falls asleep, and the gospel tells us he's chosen to leave Mary, a path that must feel soul-crushing to him, even if it is very sensible. Because Joseph, you got to imagine he has plans for his life, right? A potentially very happy life with Mary and hopefully with some children, and the joy and wonder of building a home and a life with her in this community. And only the day before, those plans, well, they were spread out before him perfectly. But in light of Mary's pregnancy, he has moved into despair this night, decided to set all that aside. This situation is just not a motorcycle that can be repaired. It's a pretty heartbreaking moment as Joseph faces another day waking up alone. But that night, Joseph has a dream. Now notice, he doesn't get an actual in-person visitation from an angel like Mary did. Instead, he gets a dream of an angel, but that's enough to steer him in a different direction than despair. He heeds the words of the angel in the dream, and so the bewildering event that was promising to crush him and his dreams of his life, this unaccountable pregnancy, it is that very thing that opens him up to this angel and to God and to hope and to a life of unbelievable wonder that he will share with Mary and Jesus. The French philosopher and mystic Simone Weil says this: extreme affliction, distress of our soul or body, is a nail whose point, when applied at the very center of our soul, well, it has the ability to pierce us and then break us open to the immensity of divine love. This is the moment, and this is the nail that pierces Joseph's life. And Weil says that that piercing has the ability to take us to the very center of the universe, the true center, which is God. That piercing focuses us and has the ability to bring us back to the place from which all love and reality emanates. And so Joseph, pierced to his core, encounters and listens to the angel, listens to the true center, which is God, and decides to follow a different direction than despair. And this makes sense because Vey says love is a direction. And when we follow love, we move in a direction and down a path that's a little less heartbreaking and a lot more soul repairing. Joseph listens and follows love's direction. He stays with Mary, and they build that life together in the face of being bewildered. I think religion scholar Alan Levinovitz would agree with Vey that bewilderment can be healing. Get the title of this article, In Praise of Bewilderment. I love that. Levinovitz says that in the space created by bewilderment, by uncertainty and ambiguity, that's where learning can begin, because these spaces force us to be humble and open and flexible. In this story from Joseph's life, we see that reality has a way of reminding us we're just not in control, and the next moment, bewilderment has the ability to invite us into wonder. Pretty cool. Now, to be clear, this is not to sugarcoat pain or to escape it by spiritualizing it, nor is it to suggest that all situations are fixable in the way that Mary and Joseph repaired their relationship. Rather, after we have felt all the pain all the way through, after we have cried and mourned and hurt and sat with this, what we get to do is make an internal decision like Joseph. We can allow ourselves to slip into despair, which is certainly an understandable reaction to bewilderment. Or we can respond to the pierced and broken lives that we have and follow Joseph in that direction of love to the place where God is reaching out for us. It may be as soft as a quiet whisper of an angel in a dream, which I don't know about you, but that sure seems like a thin strand of hope for Joseph to base his life on. But he does, and our faith says we should too, because God is there, Emmanuel, God with us in those whispers, and so we follow wherever we find love in that direction. Not an easy teaching to remember. I do not think it's the human reflex to suffering to see bewildering situations as invitations to wonder. So, if it weren't easy, we wouldn't have to tell these stories year after year, right? Instead, we have to learn this over and over together again because, as we all know, the world is a bewildering place, from unaccountable pregnancies to motorcycle repair to all of our broken dreams. When facing the hard reality of life, we, church, we get to learn together that our bewilderment does not equal separation from God. We learn together that bewilderment is a synonym to wonder, and we remember and learn together that we are always God's delight, linked to God in our very being, linked to God in our pierced places. This last week of Advent, as we walk it with Joseph and Mary through our own twists and turns and bewilderments of life, we wait, as Barclay invited us to do at the beginning of this Advent season, with attentiveness and faithfulness, remembering this: love is always a direction that we can choose, and that on Christmas morning, who knows what awaits us. Amen.